Hello everyone, I'm about to show you how I've been doing the textures on Godzilla's tail. First off, we have Godzilla. Second, tub of water from the plastic tub of choice. Helps have Mothra sitting at the side watching. I really don't know if I'm going to use Mothra in the kit. I did a good look and part of Mothra's mouth is just missing. So either I got to replace that or put Mothra aside, and I haven't figured out which yet. Again, it's optional. If I get it done, it gets in. If not, it won't. And what else I have? Ooh. I have some Aves epoxy sculpt. It's been sitting for about an hour. This feels more like it's been sitting for 2. It's really stiff. What I'm going to do now is break off pieces of this epoxy sculpt. I like to keep my fingers wet, and I'm going to roll this out into little snakes. And I don't need it big because, again, the details on this are pretty small, so the smaller the snake, the better. Okay, so I'm rolling this out. Alright, I think I've got that rolled out thin enough. So what I do next is I take my X-Acto knife. Now, can you guys even see that? No, it's right off camera. Shame on me. There we go. We'll take my X-Acto knife and I cut off pieces of the snake. Then I take my model and I put it where the mixing texture is. And I press it in. Ah, the tail just broke off. It's the second time that tail's broken off. I'm going to have to do something about that. Then I press my snake in. Now, the reason I'm doing this way is, one, using the snake allows me to control just how much Aves I'm putting down at one time. It allows me to keep from putting down huge globs of it. I'm not going to glue this tail back on until I get the seams filled, because it keeps breaking off, and I wonder why it keeps breaking off. I'm going to have to sand that down and rejoin it somehow. This shouldn't keep doing that. Okay? But again, using a snake controls the amount of Aves I put on there. So let me put some more on. And the reason for the water is Aves responds to water. Water is almost something, a little bit of a thinner to it. It allows it to be worked a little bit better. I can smooth it some with the water. And by doing this, I can press it firmly into the surface of the model along where that seam was. And again, the water smooths the texture out some. Because I'm not shooting for a thick layer. You got to remember, I carved all the surface details out of this piece earlier. And I'm just trying to put them back in. And I don't want a thick ribbon of this stuff, because then I'm hiding the details that are already present. So I just use my fingers and work this where I want it and pull it. Okay, and this goes pretty fast. You guys can tell I'm doing this in real time. You can definitely see what I'm doing in real time here. And I've almost got a big chunk of this tail done just by doing this, and it takes surprisingly little of the Aves to do this with. Very little. When I started this project, I thought I was going to need this big huge tub of Aves, and well, no. I'm not using a big tub of it at all. And you can tell in just about 5 minutes I've covered that much of that seam with Aves. Yeah, it's got some fingerprints in it and still, but that's okay. Put a little bit more on here. And again, the trick is to not get it so thick that you can't. What I'm trying to do is get it so when I run my finger over it, I don't feel a bead of it. I don't feel a huge clump. I can sand it down some too. That's not a problem if I get a little too thick. But I'm preferring not to. I'm trying to work it down where it is not huge and really, really obnoxiously above the surface. Again, I'm just trying to put a thin enough layer in here I can restore the details that we're missing. And it's okay if there is a little bit of a rise to it. Alright, let's finish up getting around the tail. And I think I'm going to go ahead and stop recording because you guys have seen enough of what I'm doing with this. I'm just working it around the seam and spreading it as I go and keeping it contained to specifically the seam. It's something I could not do with any putty. I mean, you couldn't do this with modeling putty like Sargent's or the Bondo. I tried to do this with the Bondo body putty. You know, you can't control it like this. It's just impossible to restrict what you're doing specifically to the seam with that stuff unless you're masking and all sorts of things. And I'm not masking this. Well, you can see in that short period of time I took the Aves all the way around that piece of tail. Then you let it cure overnight, and the next morning I start carving the surface detail back in. That simple. That's how I did this side of the tail. And most of that, and there's a few places I'm going to touch up tonight and put some extra Aves on there, but most of that came out where if I put a primer coat on there, I really doubt you're going to tell there was even a seam there. It came out very well. And this is fairly fast. It doesn't take me that long to do this. I took a different approach with Godzilla's main body here. I think I detailed that in the last video. I need to touch that up a teeny bit because I can still see a bit of a seam in there, but I think that's going to work better. I need to sand that off too. Well, anyhow, be back once this cures.